This is comedian Jamie Lissow, and whether you like it or not, you're listening to Fallen Hour Radio.
My name is Kerry Thomas Cody, and you're listening to Fallen Hour Radio.
This is DC O'Rourke, host of Hauntingly Yours, and you are listening to Fallen Hour Radio.
This is the Ghost Biker, and you're listening to Fallen Hour Radio.
I am Werner von Braun. This motion picture was produced to enable you to experience more personally and vividly the most dramatic events of the Apollo 11 story. The pictures and sounds are real, recorded in real time, where the action really was. So, come with us. We are going to the moon.
Well, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Cdale, Enick. This is Markus, and you are listening to Fallen Hour Radio. So tonight's topic, we are covering perhaps one of the greatest conspiracy theories out there.
The moon theories?
Right, the moon theories. Yeah. And we're going to go down the list. We got a couple callers on the line, as well as our correspondent, Jamie Lissow, waiting in the lobby for your questions. And if you guys are out there and you want to send in your questions, go to fallenhour.com. We also have some merch up there, and you can submit your questions through a form there or message us on Facebook. So I'm not going to have you trail on right now because I got some stuff I want to say too. So today yesterday we had so this would be on Tuesday, the May 17th, 2022, we had the Congress talk about UFOs in an open forum, with the public, and there a lot of things that they're saying was kind of corresponding with what's going to be happening with the media. So now that we're talking about UFOs on a podcast, we're talking about UFO sightings with the public, like other people listening to us and things,
like now, openly.
Right now, I'm thinking that. So we're talking about theories here. We're not actually saying facts. And I'm saying this for a reason because so there's not actual fact, but they are theories. And the reason I'm saying this is because I was watching this, the Congress talk about this and then being questioned about UFOs, USOs, and things of that nature. And they also mentioned like Roswell and things, but just like briefly, like for a second. Mm-hmm. And they didn't get too much into it. They had also a classified briefing with Congress that they didn't show to the public, and they did that for national security reasons. But one of the things and one of the questions on there was one of the chairman asking, when are we going to start censoring and when are we going to start holding people accountable for what the hell they call it? Misinformation. Mm-hmm. So like with Facebook, with Twitter, and all those different platforms, you have misinformation. People are being held accountable for producing misinformation.
Even faking.
Right. So now I think this is going to change the narrative with podcasting and with people out there starting their conspiracy podcast or any kind of podcast. So it gets you thinking of why is the U.S. moving into disclosing UFOs now? And are they, because I mean, there's top secret programs no matter what. And that's no question, and there's no dispute about that. And there's also top secret aircraft that have been in production for decades. Yeah. And some of them weren't put out for a few years, especially the ones that were being developed and flown in Area 51. And then those came out later on, and they were used in wars. So now we have this other, this other side of things of now we're getting into aircraft that is doing maneuvers and doing unnatural,
almost impossible,
right, movements and things. Yeah. And now they're starting to disclose this to the public, and it kind of makes you question why. Why are we now looking at UFOs again, and why are we putting that out to the public? And now we have a chairman asking, when are we going to start questioning or holding people accountable for misinformation? It kind of makes you think of, there's like two ways about it. They could be developing something and they don't want people to talk about it. They're going to test it. And that could be one of the reasons why they're going to start pushing for disclosure of this. And then if you perhaps like see the aircraft, you can't report on it, can't talk about it, or
film it,
right? Or film it and put it out there, because if you put it out there, it could be misinformation. And on the other hand, I do think it's a national security issue that we're dealing with.
That's what you believe,
right?
Okay.
So I think because I mean, it can't be another country. It can't be. I don't believe that these different aircrafts are portraying any sort of technology that is available today. Even with the stealth bomber coming out, that was somewhat conceivable.
Yeah.
Back in, I don't remember when they put it out, but you can kind of conceive that they can make a aircraft that can fly under radar. Back in those days, the good old days. But now it's like we're getting into different propulsions and things of that nature. So why is it being mainstream?
Things that have been talked about forever, it seems like.
Right.
Though.
So one of the big topics on there was they made sure they mentioned destigmatization, or they're going to take away the stigma now of I guess the loony people out there who had conspiracy theories about it, right?
Yeah.
So now it's not a conspiracy. If you're starting a podcast about UFOs, it's not a conspiracy podcast anymore.
No.
It's a fact check, or a factual podcast talking about factual entities or aircraft. And one of the congressmen on there, he mentioned, like in his opening statements, was that they're not stigmatized anymore and they're real. So the U.S. government is acknowledging the UFOs as an actual tangible object.
Yeah. Something that actually exists.
Right.
And not just for the loony people, as you said.
Right. Right. So, because up until I don't know.
Like they're making, man, I feel like they're dicks. You know what I mean?
Why?
Like they're basically making people seem like they're crazy.
Right. For
this
so many
entire
years,
time.
for
Finally
decades.
came out and you're like, you know what? They're out there.
Right. So I mean, we talked about this before with Balbazar. We have other people who I think are crazy talking about abductions and
it's
things.
like kind of hard to weed them out, though, I guess.
Right. And that's one of the things that they mentioned on there too is, are we accepting reports from non-military personnel or non-military citizens? And I think he was kind of on the fence. He was saying we're mostly reviewing military interactions, and we are reviewing some of the I guess the public's videos and things. And the video they put up there was just stupid. the main video they were going over was just it was like,
You can't say that.
you know, they can't do that either. No, but the
Horrible.
I apologize for those words. Anyways, I just talk, okay, and this gets me in trouble so much in my life. But if the video that they put up there is, I mean, there's nothing to go off of.
I'm sorry. Right? I'm losing it here.
Right?
Okay.
Do I not get myself in trouble
Okay,
just by talking? I always do. It's stupid. And can't say stupid now. But the video that they had up there was just of a pilot in the cockpit. And it's like a 3-second video of him like panning to the right. And you just see like a little blip go.
Like really quick.
Yeah, really quick.
I think just replayed the hell out of that.
And to show how...
Like, why couldn't they put the Tic Tac up there?
Right, they made mention of it. They didn't show the video.
They mentioned it, but that should have been like the main.
Right. So the two things,
or the Omaha, they should at least put that up there.
They put the Navy one up there.
Okay.
And now they said they had people looking into that and saying it was a drone or something, and they replicated that with
That's
technology.
One crazy drone.
Right. Because of the reflection and the light it was giving off, that was seen with IR, infrared, and they're seeing this blinking happening, so they recreated that somehow.
You can recreate anything you want, though.
Right. So we have the Congress talking about this UFO disclosures, UFOs, and the only two things they bring to the table is this really stupid video of where all you see is like a split second of it, and to show how
It's not stupid. It's a phenomenon.
right, and to show how ridiculous that piece of footage was. They were trying to pause it. They were trying in real time.
Trying to catch it.
They're trying to pause it in real time, and I was watching. Like, I had to like fast forward because I knew he wasn't going to get it. And I fast forwarded it, and they just didn't. They finally got it. Like later on, they like took it off, and then, anyways, they finally got it. It's like this little like silverish blip in the sky. Anyways, all they brought to Congress was that and the other one who they supposedly debunked, the one from the Navy.
But they talked about the red orb they saw over, what was it, like a nuclear base?
Right.
Was it? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, they brought that up at least, but I was hoping they'd really get into that.
Right, but that's one of the
things.
things.
They're asking about it.
Right, and
what it was.
And the people that were being questioned said they didn't look into it, and it was
the head of the UAP task force.
Right. And they said it didn't really review it or anything, even though it's like a huge...
Saying, like, nobody brought it to our attention, or
right,
we heard about it.
If you guys don't know what that is, it was a UFO sighting or some sort of happening or incident that happened with a military base, and this red orb appears, and there's multiple people seeing it, military personnel, and it disarmed 10 of their nuclear warheads.
Yeah, that's scary.
Right, yeah, and they said, can that be
if
a
they could
drone?
disarm them, they could probably launch them.
Right. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Scary. And you sent me a video of Jeremy Corbell sharing a warship or something firing. I don't know if that was figurative or if it's if they actually fired on somebody.
That's what I was kind of thinking. I was
right.
like, I wonder if it was just
figurative.
Yeah.
But so now that I got that out of the way, I just wanted to make my peace with that because I watched the whole thing today.
20 minutes.
Right. I was watching that and I was like, man, this is it's interesting to see the U.S. talking about it. And
openly, that's what.
Right. Yeah. And you kind of wait for it. You're kind of waiting. Like, are they going to say aliens?
Yeah.
And then they do say aliens, and they say alien is a word they can use for anything, whether that's alien aircraft that's not native to the U.S. or illegal aliens or things of that nature. Is you can use it for anything. Anything that's not native to, I guess.
You should have used extraterrestrial.
They did use extraterrestrial,
I mean,
right?
Rather than alien.
Yeah. So there was one of the congressmen asking if this is extraterrestrial. Is it possible that it is, and things of that nature. And they get into this conversation. It's like, whoa! It's like
it's weird seeing like all these officials
right
talking about that,
and we're talking about it now. But
I don't know why I air quoted officials.
But that's what I'm saying though. Is I think we're going to see a big shift with. And we already are seeing a big shift with the way the news is portraying this. And I think we're going to see a shift now with the way podcasts are being produced about this and the way that people are presenting their evidence. Because now
I'm just waiting for those really like the officials to actually walk up to the podium with their hair up like that and say aliens.
Right.
It's aliens.
I don't know if we'll ever get to that point. I don't think. I don't think we're going to get to the point where. I mean, they are open about it, saying that they don't know what they are. They can't identify them. They have no propulsion on them. A lot of these sightings, and they question that as well as what are these craft and if they don't have any discernible propulsion. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys said that maybe they figured out a new technology to suppress that, maybe.
Or either anti-gravity.
Right. But it's still anti-gravity.
Well, I know that, but you know what I mean.
It's still in the science fiction realm. But yeah, it's interesting to get into this. So, I don't even remember my notes.
You literally have it in your face.
Right. I know, but I'm trying to read it. But tonight's podcast, we are covering more notably some moon theories. The way I said that word is so weird. Theories. Anyways, we have this new, I guess it's not a new theory, but there is a theory out there that, especially everyone knows this, that the U.S. either landed on the moon or they didn't land on the moon. There's like a whole division on this, a divide.
Well, I don't think it was that they landed on the moon. It's more so the Apollo 11, the first landing on the moon.
Right.
Whether that was real or not.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess before we get to those questions, let's go to our correspondent, Jamie Lissow. Jamie, do you think we landed on the moon?
Did we in fact land on the moon? I have a definitive answer to this. Absolutely. We landed on the moon. If you take a look at the details of the video of the moon landing, if you look closely, you will notice at the very bottom that there's text and it says, man lands on the moon. So why would the news put that on there if a man had not in fact been sent to the moon? Thank you.
Now that, so if you guys don't know, Jamie's going to be part of the podcast, and you guys can ask him questions, send in your questions that you want Jamie to answer, and he'll do his best to answer those questions. So there is a theory out there, and this has to do with one of my favorite movies, and love this movie, watch it like 3-4 times a year at least. And it's a very long movie, but this is a movie that is, I guess, in this theory, is the focal point. And this is the Shining.
Yeah.
And Stephen King book made into a movie. And we have a director, Stanley Kubrick, who, for some strange reason, is pulled into this theory of did he help orchestrate the faking of the moon landing? And I'm pretty sure other people have talked about this, but just the way that he does his films. He does his films in a way where he's always saying something else besides what you're seeing on the picture. Is he always has some sort of alternate meaning to pretty much every little piece that he does.
Well, he was like really into like metaphors and coding, like, you know, basically showing things but having a different meaning behind them,
right?
Like a hidden meaning. He was really into that kind of stuff,
right? And Stanley Kubrick was a legitimate genius, and on his spare time he would do things like really complex mathematical equations, and he was interested in things like that, and that's how he spent his free time. And then he would go and make movies. And,
he does math for fun,
right? Yeah. So he's got this mind to, I guess, artistically hide things inside his film that have to do with his life or something that happened to him or is happening in the world or things of that nature. So
he did that like in a lot of his movies. So.
Right. And if you guys don't know who Stanley Kubrick is, he made movies such as The Shining, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Full Metal Jacket, and Eyes Wide Shut.
Clockwork Orange.
Right. Yeah, and he's well established. So the first notes, freaking burn that.
If that starts on fire,
you know, that one had to do with the Tic Tac video, and
it's not important.
Right, it's not important now. Anyways, there was a U.S. pilot who says that they see UAP every single day. They mentioned that in Congress as well. Anyways, so the Space Odyssey took place, and this was made in 1968. It's about 2001, A Space Odyssey, and it was profound with its accurate depictions of space flight. He avoided regular use of film tricks for things of space, so he would always, especially filming other films, he would try to avoid their traditional way of shooting things with special effects, and he tried to make them as accurate as possible. When he got into the Space Odyssey, he tried to make also the space flight and the physics of space realistic. Yeah,
and that's why they asked him to do it.
So
fake the moon landing,
right? So we are talking about Apollo 11, and this is a manned mission that landed men on the moon for the first time in history. But some speculate Stanley Kubrick aided the United States in faking the moon landing. The theory puts focus on the 2001 Space Odyssey, pulling some of the imagery and set to satisfy this theory. And I think you also did some research on this, but I'll just go through my notes.
Fell way deep in the rabbit hole on this one, man.
So people have this theory, especially from watching the movie, especially from researching the topic, that Stanley somehow had interactions with the U.S. during the moon landing. And so they pull a lot of the imagery from The Shining and try to satisfy that theory. And there's some interesting imagery in there that kind of little bit on the nose.
It wasn't really an open theory until they did a documentary on what the true meaning behind The Shining was.
The
Like
fake documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no, there was a documentary called Room 237.
Right.
It's an older documentary, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they asked, like, directors and stuff what their thoughts were on it. And I think his name was like Jay Widener or something that came up with this theory.
Right.
And the detail on it is just insane. Like literally the smallest things and the smallest details. When you put them all together, it makes perfect sense.
Right. And there is a video out there of Stanley Kubrick admitting to this, but it was included into a documentary or a mockumentary.
Yeah.
And then he was a part of it and saying that he helped fake the moon landing, things of that nature. But not true. But he was acting in that. But people speculate. Take the floor, Marcus.
So you want me to go through the Shining theory?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I got a bunch of notes here. I just put them all on my phone. But let me see. Yeah, Kubrick, he was the type of person that he had like full control, over every little thing in his movies. Like he'd have the setting how he wanted it, literally the furniture, the designs, everything. And he would literally make sure everything was exactly how he wanted it before even shooting anything.
Right.
So like even the designs, on the rugs and stuff in The Shining, he literally had total control over all of that.
Right.
So that kind of like comes into play later on. But he, I guess like during this movie, he really kind of like went like way, way overboard with filming. Like the smallest details and stuff, he would film the smallest scenes over and over and over and over, like literally driving the cast members like crazy.
Right.
And I think, remember the scene where he, this is just an example, the scene where Jack Nicholson is kind of, where he kind of turns crazy and he starts kind of going at, what's her name? Shelley Duvall or?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And she has the bat. They filmed that scene like 127 times. Over and over and over and
Why?
over. Just he wouldn't even give a reason. He'd cut it and start it over. So they literally filmed that scene constantly. I think 127 times.
127, right?
Yeah.
Oh wait, does that number have any significance or no?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
No,
Continue.
The number you're thinking of is
237.
Yeah. But this guy that came up with this theory, he believes that this was actually kind of like his hidden confession that he faked the moon landing.
Right.
Like he couldn't come out and talk about it, so instead he kind of hid it within a movie that you wouldn't think he would do.
Right.
Like he wasn't kind of like, I guess he wasn't the type of person that would do like a horror movie like this.
Yeah.
And what really kind of pushes this theory even further is he changed so many things in The Shining, that didn't have to do with the book, even the smallest details, just to fit
his narrative.
Yeah, his narrative. Like he would, I think one of the things he changed was, the twins. They weren't in the book. He added that in. They were actually sisters, and they were like different ages, but he changed that for a certain reason.
Huh.
But hold on, I'm gonna take a drink. You can cut this. Like starting from the beginning of the movie, there's this scene where where Jack is interviewing for the caretaker position of the Overlook Hotel.
Right.
And in the scene, in the background on the windowsill, this is supposed to be like one of the hidden, messages, is an eagle on the windowsill.
Right.
And they're saying that the eagle basically represents the
Interview.
No,
with the interaction with him in the U.S.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
The eagle actually represents the lunar lander, which was called the Eagle.
Right.
And within the actual shot, it's on the windowsill, and they're saying that like maybe basically sets the stage, and the eagle's on the stage.
Right.
And even on one of the other shots, like kind of the closer shots, you can see there's an American flag right there, which isn't uncommon, but if you kind of put it all together, it makes sense. And the guy interviewing him is supposed to be basically the manager of America.
Right.
So like the president of the United States, basically kind of coming to him saying, hey, you know, we want you to do this. So that's kind of like what that scene was supposed to represent, I guess. And later on, like, oh no, wait, hold on. The Overlook Hotel, before I kind of trail on, I guess the Overlook Hotel, like when I was kind of reading into this, they supposedly represented like America, I guess. So the Overlook is America.
Right.
And the way they kind of like say this is why it represents America is because he was telling them that the Overlook Hotel was basically built on Native American graves, which is like, you know, America.
Interesting, yeah.
And that kind of plays along with a different theory too, talking about like, you know, the Native American massacre and stuff. But this is the one that kind of goes really, really deep into detail is this theory. So he, after, you know, the interview and everything, and he, you know, goes to the hotel, you start to see all these different images that kind of represent, you know, the Apollo missions and stuff. Like you brought it up, the whole, what was it with the Tang?
Oh, yeah. So inside of one of the scenes in The Shining, I think he's in the kitchen, right? Jack. And there is on the shelf Tang, which was heavily marketed towards young kids or young boys as being the spaceman's drink. Yeah. Like you drink this, you're out of this world, or you're an astronaut, or you can be. It's something cool tied to astronauts, which were like a huge thing, especially.
This is a typical meal served to astronauts aboard Apollo space flights: oatmeal, sausage, toast, applesauce, and in a special zero-gravity pouch, Tang, the energy breakfast drink. Orange-flavored Tang with rich, natural flavor and more vitamin C than orange juice. Energy Tang for spacemen and Earth families.
Yes, that's what they drank when they were, you know.
Right. They just marketed different. Well, they said it was Tang, but they couldn't say that.
Yeah.
So it was an orange drink.
Yeah.
And then Tang took that on as Tang.
Yeah.
And they marketed towards kids. Yeah.
But yeah, like I thought that was funny because I was like kind of like no way, you know. But like even like the smallest details like that, you know, when you kind of compile them, it starts making sense.
So we have this this director who's directing this film, and we established like the groundwork that he hides things in the film, and likes to do so in a way that it's somewhat insignificant to the film, but has significance to
his
I guess
narrative.
This theory, and his narrative. So so if you look at the kid, especially when he's Danny, when he's playing on the floor with his cars, so Danny gets up and makes his way to, okay, hold on. There's a scene where Danny is a kid playing with toy cars on the carpet, and the shape that he makes with the cars represent the Apollo launch pad. And he also wears a knitted sweater that says NASA on it, and Apollo 11, and it says USA on the bottom. And Danny gets up and makes his way to room 237, but it's in the book that room is 217. But while filming, Stanley Kubrick had this change to 237, almost signaling a direct link to the distance of the moon to the Earth, which is 237,000 miles away. And he had that well displayed on the screen because like they do a pan do it, and it's like takes up the whole screen.
Yeah.
And 237. And when Danny, the boy, comes out of the room, his sweater is torn, and he appears to have marks on his throat. When Wendy, played by Shelley Duvall, asked what happened, Danny wasn't able to speak, and the theory is that this is Stanley signaling his forced silence to Apollo 11.
Yeah, like he signed a non-disclosure agreement.
Right, and they put a gag on it. And there are things in the background, like a box in the kitchen, like we just talked about.
With
and
the number 39 on it?
Right, with number 39 on it, which is 39000, but the launch pad to Apollo 11 was 39A, and Tang, which we just talked about, was heavily marketed towards young kids or young boys as being the spaceman's drink. And we look at, I guess, Buzz Aldrin. Yeah. And this is what I was talking about before. I mentioned we did this before, and I was like, okay, so I believe we went to the moon.
Yeah.
I believe we did go to the moon with Apollo 11, but I believe that there's a lot of things that conflict with that, though. Is because when you say you believe that, there's all these different things that happen around the Apollo 11 mission of Buzz Aldrin coming out. I think it was like in 2016 or something like that. He was with Conan O'Brien.
Yeah.
And Conan O'Brien's talking to him as like a hero. He's like one of his heroes. And he says he remembers getting up that morning, watching them land on the moon.
Watching the footage.
Yeah. And Buzz Aldrin's like, no, what you saw was animation.
Yeah. He said you didn't see that.
Yeah, you didn't see that. It was an animation. What you did hear, or what you did see, was an audio of us of being on the moon.
Yeah.
And that was an animation. And Conan's kind of like taken back.
That's when he says the eagle has landed.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's taken back of it. And he's like, so maybe my memory's foggy or something. And then he says, he kind of holds that.
Well, let's talk about this, because this is fascinating. I remember very clearly, I think anybody who was alive at the time does. I remember my parents waking me up, and we went down and we watched you guys land on the moon.
No, you didn't.
What?
Because there wasn't any television. There wasn't anybody taking a picture. You watched animation. See, you associated what you saw with...
I have very hazy memories.
Yeah, I know.
Well, no, but what we saw was we all were gathered around the old curved top radio and listened.
Talking about how many feet we were going to the left and right, and then I said, contact light, engine stop.
It was
and
exciting.
A few other things, and then Neil said, Houston, Tranquility Base, the Eagle has landed. Man, how about that?
That was very exciting.
Not a bad line.
Yeah.
Later on in the interview, he gives details about being on the moon and being on TV and things of that nature.
Actually, in the footage, you're the one that's bunny hopping. You know what I mean? Why were you doing that? Because you look at the footage, and you were the astronaut that started jumping up and down on the moon and doing some kind of a bunny hop.
Not bunny hop, kangaroo hop. 2 feet at a time.
I always mess up these technical terms.
You got to keep those people in the southern hemisphere happy. Those,
What was the point of that?
Under.
Was that a scientific experiment,
yes,
or were you getting too much gas in the helmet?
I thought it was a good idea. I thought it was a good idea in front of the TV to bounce around and to demonstrate how easy a guy could move around, or a gal could move around on the moon.
What did you eat up there? You always hear about, we were told that you guys had Tang. I think you didn't have Tang.
We didn't call it that. We had an orange drink, but some of the guys didn't like the orange drink, so we cut it with grapefruit juice, and we call it orange grapefruit.
Because as kids, we were told the astronauts drank Tang. You must also have Tang, and now I find out that that's a bunch of baloney.
No, we had whatever went into Tang went into the orange drink. So, but
okay.
NASA gets a little sensitive about commercializing things, Coca-Cola.
But this is what I was saying before. Was it kind of seems like Buzz Aldrin is messing with us? You know what I mean?
I don't know. Every time it comes to Buzz Aldrin, man, it just...
He kind of seems...
I go back and forth.
Like, have you ever met that person where they're messing with you?
Yeah.
Or they're being serious and you're like, are you messing with me? Like, they do things and it's like, you can't tell if they're messing with you or not. That kind of seems like Buzz Aldrin to me. You know what I mean?
It's hard to say, because like I remember I brought that up before when he's talking to that little girl.
Right.
And she's talking about him going to the moon, and he basically tells her like it never happened.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen, so in the future, if we want to keep doing something, we need to know why something stopped in the past that we wanted to keep it going. But I think I know. Because we didn't.
Also, another note down. You can buy these notes on fallenhour.com, by the way.
But yeah, like even Wheezy said, maybe he just has dementia, because he is pretty old. It's a possibility. I mean, I don't know. But every now and then, like, you see him, like, even when they're talking about the moon and he's standing in the background talking about going to the moon and this and that, and he's just sitting there and you see his face. He kind of looks, he's like kind of shaking his head, kind of, like almost like he's listening to them lie, and it's starting to bug him.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that I believe that we didn't go to the moon and they faked the moon landing and all that, the first moon landing.
Right.
Because if they were to fake, the moon landing, it would have been that one. Because, like, this was the time of the space race and all of that, and during the Cold War, and they were trying to basically beat Russia to the moon.
Right.
Or everybody.
What's stupid? As we did a podcast about this a while back, and we mentioned the moon landing, and there was a photo inside of the newspaper that was supposedly from the moon landing.
Yeah.
And it's a guy like kind of shaped like this. It's like one of the most famous images, right? Yeah. And they put it side by side with a training photo from NASA NASA had mock-ups of the moon.
Yeah.
And they had little stages and things of nature to simulate the moon so they can go and practice being on the moon. And there's an image of this astronaut, and he's kind of like in a sitting position, and he's floating. And they put that in the paper saying there's a photo from our moon landing. And people put it side by side with the training footage or the training photo and the photo that was put in the newspaper.
It's the same
totally
photo.
Same thing. You know what's stupid? Is I have that photo on my fridge. The other day I was going to get something out of the fridge, and I go to grab the handle. I look up and I see that. I was like, there it is. What the hell? It's in my house.
Isn't that the photo, like literally the same photo they used for MTV?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Like,
yeah. That's the photo that was doctored, and this is one of the main bullet points for conspiracy theorists about the moon landing is that photo. They have all sorts of things like the Stanley Kubrick thing, why did NASA have sets built, things of that nature.
So, like, one of the theories is that Jack and Danny both represent Kubrick.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like, you see Danny. He's more like the one that's, I guess he's the one was approached basically by NASA, and they wanted him to, like, fake the moon landing and all this and that because he has gifts.
Danny.
Yeah.
The boy?
The boy.
Okay.
Because he has, this gift, like, let's say Kubrick, this gift of, visual effects and like he was, a photographer and, filmmaking and all this kind of stuff and special effects, all of that kind of stuff. So that kind of supposed to represent him, that side of him. And Jack is supposed to represent basically like the torment after doing what he did. Basically lying to the world,
right?
And the torment that it took on him, and the toll, and that is kind of represented in the movie, like what you were talking about when he's playing on the rug with the hexagon like launch pad,
right?
Apollo 11 launch pad,
yeah.
And he gets up, and the way he stands up, I kind of noticed that after seeing this. Is it looks like he's on this launch pad, and then he stands up almost like the rocket's taken off, on his sweatshirt.
Right.
And
interesting. Yeah.
And he makes his way to room 237, which is supposed to represent the moon.
Right.
Because it was 237,000 miles.
Right.
To the moon.
This is like I like this. Okay.
Like, I know some people will probably say like, oh, that's wrong. It's actually, 238,000 something, whatever miles.
It changes every year.
But in old text and old, science dictionaries and stuff, it's written as 237,000 miles. So it's still, still spot on.
Right.
And, he goes to the moon basically to room 237, and something happens and he comes out and he's just, basically
disheveled.
He can't talk.
Right.
He can't talk about it. He can't talk about what happened in 237. He can't talk to his mom. He can't talk to anybody. And that's supposed to represent that, I guess. But, the scene where he goes to the bar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that scene.
Yeah. Where he meets the bartender.
Yeah.
Now this
I love it so much more because they covered it in Bob's Burgers.
Yeah. Now this is where it kind of takes like a darker turn because it's almost like it represents him kind of selling his soul.
Interesting.
Okay. You know, he sits down at the bar and he says, you know, man, I'd sell my soul for a drink right now.
Right.
And the bartender just shows up. He's standing right there.
Yeah.
And the way he looks, it's almost devilish, like, you know, the lighting, the dark lighting, the red, you know, the red clothes he has on.
Right.
And just the way he looks, it looks almost like kind of sinister.
Mm-hmm.
And basically him giving him the drink and him taking the drink from supposedly the real manager of the Overlook Hotel, which is supposed to represent
the president,
America.
Right.
Yeah. So who's the real, you know, manager of the Overlook Hotel? So that's supposed to be like him basically selling his soul for this.
Right.
And he takes the drink, and that's when he starts kind of descending in the movie and starts going, you know, kind of losing his mind and going crazy. And, you know, after Danny, you know, comes out of room 237 and he goes to find out, you know, what the hell happened in there. And that's where he meets like the creepiest part of the movie is the lady in the bathtub.
Yeah.
Man, that used to just bother the hell out
still
of me. It
bothers
just
me.
creeps me out, man. I mean, this movie isn't like
look at the bathroom.
I know. It's like it's not like really scary or jumpy scary. It's highly unsettling.
Right.
It is.
Yeah.
It gives you that creepy feeling.
Yeah.
And that woman just, oh my God, just totally.
I'm trying to
blows
like
that out
think
of
back
water.
about the movie too now as like these different images and things that they show, and it's kind of hard to decipher what he put in, what he took out.
Yeah.
And I mean, did he actually meet the manager, or was it just somebody who was I don't remember. Was it the actual manager of the hotel, or was it?
Yeah. Well, the living manager of the hotel.
Oh, okay, I get it now.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then they all had to pack up and leave, and
Yeah.
he was there alone. Okay,
Yeah.
I get it now. Okay.
Now, this is really interesting, actually. This part of the whole theory is the woman that plays the old lady. Her name is Billy Gibson.
Okay.
And this is the only movie she's ever been in. She's not an actress or anything like that. She's never been in anything but this movie. And what's strange about that is the name Billy Gibson. There's another person on, you know, you can find him. His name is Bill Gibson. And he's the one that did the documentary of the moon landing. I think it's called like Footprints on the Moon or something like that. I can't remember.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. Hold on, let me find what it's
On an actual real documentary.
Yeah, it's a real documentary
about the moon landing.
Mm-hmm. And he's actually the director of it, and he's like he was like a photographer and stuff for like NASA, I think. And so that's kind of weird how this lady literally has the same name as this guy that did the documentary for the moon landing.
Right.
And they're saying like, you know, maybe it was somebody he knew when he was working with NASA, you know, and I guess he kind of was kind of working with him when he made the Space Odyssey, didn't he?
I don't remember.
I think he did. I think he was kind of working with them. And
the Bill dude?
No, Kubrick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that Bill Gibson dude was working with him?
And so they're saying maybe that's how he met this Bill Gibson.
Right.
And maybe that's why he put her into the movie.
Yeah.
Is to kind of represent this guy.
Okay.
So I thought that was kind of freaking
strange. So did he have any ties to the actual moon landing, or did he have any ties to government or anything like that?
Just that he worked with NASA.
The Bill Gibson dude?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just weird that he literally found somebody with the same name to play this part.
That's
like he would go out of his way to find this person to play that certain character.
That's got to be a hard search.
I know. That's what I was thinking. Like, how did you go about that?
She's got to have the name, and she has to be old.
And she has to be old. When he did the Space Odyssey movie, in an interview, he was talking about how you wouldn't get much from, you know, listening to anything during the movie, that everything was basically visual. You'd get the whole story by, you know, visualization.
Oh, you get it by just watching it, or
by just watching it. So like they're kind of thinking maybe that's what he did in this movie. You know, everything had to be visual.
Right. And when he was doing the Space Odyssey, that was around the time they were planning on going to the moon.
Yep.
And he had all the sets set up and everything and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So like that was kind of like a big kind of tell sign, I guess, that maybe this is what he was trying to do. You know, he was basically trying to hide everything in plain sight.
Right.
For everybody to see. It's like his confession, basically saying, you know, yeah, I did it, you know?
Right.
But anyway, like back to, you know, these little hidden messages and stuff. One of the more interesting ones was the sisters.
Right.
The twins. In the book, there was actually two sisters that were different ages, you know, and they were there, you know, before him. You know, they're the old caretaker's daughters that went, you know, off the rails and lost his mind and, you know, killed his family and killed them. And in his version, he changed it to twins. And this is like one of the small, you know, little details that he changed that kind of, I guess, annoyed Stephen King,
right.
because he changed so many things, even like the most minor things. And he wouldn't tell anybody why. He just did it, you know. And even the Stephen King gave him, you know, notes and everything of what he wanted in the movie and everything like that. And he didn't
disregarded.
He didn't listen to anything. He just did what he wanted to do.
Disregarded.
So it's like he took on this movie just so he can basically make his confession. So that's what the theory is.
That's kind of selfish.
Yeah, I know. Like, and this is one of the things is these twins. You know, basically the twins represent Gemini, which is the star sign. You know, it's, you know, twins is a star sign, and that was the predecessor to Jack being the first caretaker there before he came in. Just like NASA, the Apollo represents Jack and Danny, and the predecessor was the Gemini.
Oh, funny.
You know
okay.
I mean? Yeah. So that's how that kind of ties together. And like maybe that's why he made the twins his predecessors rather than making them sisters.
Right.
To represent Gemini.
Okay, I like that one.
Yeah, I thought that one was really cool.
And when they're filming the Space Odyssey, they used a lot of backlighting in that movie.
Yeah.
If you guys watch the movie, I would implore you to go watch it. And but the way that they shot the movie is there's an outside light source. So there's them on the moon or in the space setting, and there's a backlight like way in the distance. And when you go and look at the footage from the Apollo 11, they have a lot of the similarities.
Yeah.
The way that the I guess that for this example, we'll call it the set. Like if let's say that because there's no other way for me to put this, I don't want to work around it. And but let's say that the astronauts are on a set, and this is everything we would know, grown to love about the moon landing. If you guys were raised up in back then, and all these images come to your mind of these men on the moon, and let's say that they're on a set. The way that he set up his lighting and the backlighting and the lighting up the astronauts on the opposite side is the exact, I guess, it's like a mirror image from the way he shot the movie and the way that the moon landing footage is. I don't make sense. They have the same kind of lighting.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say. That was so stupid. I went on like a whole little thing trying to work around it.
But you know, you think it's really weird that if that's the case, if he made this movie and they actually landed on the moon, he didn't fake it. He fucking nailed it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he nailed it with the lighting and everything, exactly like you just described.
Right. Yeah.
It's like spot on.
And they didn't have any reference. He didn't have any reference to.
Nobody knew that's how it looked up there.
Right.
It's just off. It's just his brain. Like this is how I imagine how it looks.
Right.
He would make it.
So it's really hard to wrap your head around that we went to the moon.
Yeah.
Because I mean I know that people out there saying we did go to the moon.
Yeah. I mean yeah, we went to the moon. I just mean like the whole theory of this, faking the moon landing was just the first moon landing.
Right.
Yeah.
But we didn't go back since Apollo 17. Yeah. And we didn't have the technology to go back, and we kind of just declined. We have the technology now, it's just no one's making the effort to go back to the moon. And
well, I mean, it was like, a few years ago? Was it a few years ago? Or was it pretty recently that China went to the dark side of the moon with their rover?
Did they really?
Yeah, they did.
I didn't see that.
And they saw some horrific stuff. I'm just kidding, I don't know.
Right. So
I don't know what they saw. I didn't really.
So does that wrap it up for the whole Stanley Kubrick thing?
No, it does not.
Okay, continue.
Anyway, another thing that kind of stuck out was when the blood flows out of the elevators.
Right.
Now when it's kind of like how it looks when it's slowed down and the blood is like coming out and flowing out, and the way the elevators look, it almost looks like how the fire would look in a launch pad.
Oh,
like when
funny.
it takes off. That's supposed to represent the takeoff, I guess.
Okay, on to the next one.
Okay, I'll give you another one really quick. At the end of the movie, when Shelley Duvall comes in, before that scene, they film like 127 times.
Right.
She finds his writings, what he's been writing.
Yeah.
That all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Right.
Now, on these old typewriters, the number 1 key and the I key are the same key. A lot of times it's the same key they use. So basically when you're writing 1 or I or this or that, it's the same key on the A or the 1 and the I.
Right.
So when you look at it as him typing 1, it's A11 work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Basically Apollo 11 work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So
funny.
And they're like saying maybe that's why he used this,
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Is it really?
Yeah, I know.
That's pretty cool. I like that one.
I thought that was pretty cool too.
So we do have a couple callers in the line. Let's go to caller number 1, who is waiting in the lobby, and we're gonna open up the lines and have you guys ask your questions. So let's get that going. Caller number 1.
Hey, what's up? Yeah. Do you have any specials?
Oh no, this is a podcast.
What?
This is a podcast.
None of that sounds good. It doesn't even sound like food. You don't have any specials?
No, we're filming a podcast. We have cameras and things of nature.
What?
Cameras.
Forget it. Dude, let me get a large pizza.
Okay.
With
just let him finish.
Pepperoni on one half. The left half, if you could do that.
We have no capabilities to make a pizza.
Or the right half, and then just hand it to me the opposite way. One large pizza with pepperoni.
This is a podcast.
What'd you say?
You're calling into a podcast.
Can I finish my order, and then you could ask me questions?
Okay.
One large pizza.
Just let him finish.
Pepperoni on the left half, and then just a side of another large pizza.
Okay. All right. Call number 1. Yeah, if you're listening to this, you called into a podcast and not a pizza joint. Okay.
Oh my God. Okay. Anyway.
So now we have this, we've covered this theory about the moon landing and Stanley Kubrick's involvement, and we mentioned the dark side of the moon. And this is so if you guys are listening to this podcast, we aren't just trying to dive into Stanley Kubrick and his involvement solely, but we are trying to paint pictures of the moon and the moon landing and different moon theories and things of that nature. If you do you have anything else on Stanley Kubrick?
Yeah, you're going to like this one.
Okay, let's go into it more.
Okay. So at the very end of the movie, before I get to that part, let me get to one more part.
Okay.
Now he's standing in this room and he's, throwing a ball, at the wall. Right?
Yes.
You remember that scene?
Yeah.
Now, do you remember what was in the background?
No.
On the wall, there's these big Native American totems. Now, if you look closely at them, they're literally shaped like Saturn V rockets, which was the rocket that went to the moon.
Oh, wow.
Just like the same one that was on Danny's shirt.
Right.
Same exact one.
Yeah.
So, obviously there's, rockets and, all these different things that represent, the moon landing in the movie. But no,
And
this one's kind of cool.
And I think it paints a picture too of the moon landing, the Overlook Hotel being in isolation.
Yeah.
Just like the moon would be.
Yeah. And like there was even this whole thing about like, you know, the storm that was coming, you know, the winter storm that was coming was supposed to represent like the Cold War, I guess.
Oh, funny.
See, like this is what I mean. Like when you put it all together, it starts like making sense. But like I think this is like one of the coolest ones, and there was no reason for this in the movie. At the very end, it's the one that always racked my brain. I was like, what did that even fucking mean?
Right.
Is
when he's frozen?
No. I completely forgot about that when his eyes are all.
That one gets me every time. I watched the whole movie. I'm totally into it. Love the storyline. Gets to the end, he's freaking
he's just
frozen.
He's looking straight up.
Yeah.
The goofiest face. That always makes me laugh. But no, it's literally right after that is when it's the interior, I almost said Stanley Hotel, the Overlook Hotel. And it's that old picture, that 1921 picture of those partygoers.
Yeah, and he's in there.
And he's standing in there in the front of the picture.
Yeah.
In front of all of them. Now he had no reason to put this in the movie, and actually he wasn't. That's a real photo, except it was airbrushed in.
Right.
He literally airbrushed Jack Nicholson into that picture. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing about this picture is the way he's posed. He's literally posed like Baphomet.
Oh, funny.
One hand, you know, the most notable, you know, illustration of Baphomet was, you know, one hand pointing up toward the moon and his other hand pointing toward the moon.
Right.
Now, if you look at that picture, he's literally posing the exact same way.
Wow.
Yeah, that one I was like fucking mind blown.
Right. So I didn't know why they put that in the movie either.
Yeah, I was like, man, what the hell does that mean? You know, it's like, was he always there? Like, I always racked my brain.
Right.
That part always like messed with my head every time I watched that movie.
Does that image, that photo, that has nothing to do with the movie at all?
Mm-mm. It has nothing
in my
to do
head.
with
It was like he was the
he was the caretaker,
right? The caretaker for all these years. He was the one that he was the dead
since 1921,
right? Yeah, he was the dead caretaker or some sort of. That was like my takeaway from it.
But that just doesn't make sense. I mean, even if you watch Dr. Sleep, it's one of my all-time favorite movies.
Right.
That picture just doesn't make sense. He put that in there on purpose just to say, you know, here's for you conspiracy theorists out there, you know.
Like, yeah.
It's like he purposely made this stuff like basically tangible for all the conspiracy theorists out there.
Yeah, it's like, why would you include Apollo 11 in a horror movie? Why would you include
basically like he just took this movie so he can just mess with it,
right,
and make it for himself.
And I think that it paints a picture too. I think it fits the whole theory of, you have the author Stephen King.
Yeah.
You have a director who's Stanley Kubrick, and he's trying to mess and alter with the film. You have the author going in there and saying, I don't want it to be this way. I want it.
He does not listen to
he doesn't
him
listen
at
to
all.
Him. He's like hell bent on trying to make the film his way, but he isn't changing too much that would I get it from Stephen King's standpoint, because Stephen King is meticulous with his details.
So was he.
Right. Like if you read his books, he describes the smells and the ambiance and things of that nature. And Stanley Kubrick goes in there and he's also detailed.
Mostly visual.
Right.
Everything is visual.
And I see how if you're the author and you have all these details, fine details of how if you alter certain things, it can mess with the whole feeling he's trying to give off.
Yeah.
But he isn't altering them, I guess, too much out of the scope. But he is making some big changes with minor details, which can, I guess, irritate Stephen King.
Like he always had hidden messages and stuff, like in his movies, like A Clockwork Orange. There was like Illuminati like symbols and stuff like that.
Right.
Basically, kind of.
Which I'm hesitant to go into that topic.
And
we probably should though.
Yeah, I know. Okay, let me just get to this little part because it has to do with that.
Right.
Like secret societies and stuff is the last movie he made. Yeah. Basically, the last movie he made was Eyes Wide Shut.
Right.
And that was about like secret societies.
Was that the one with
like
Tom Cruise?
Yeah.
Interesting.
That was
Tom
his last
Cruise.
movie.
Yeah.
Now he made this movie about that, and the theory was that he was trying to expose those, dark things like that. And 4 days after, he finished this movie, he died.
Wow.
Yeah, he died literally right after. So that kind of like sparked all these conspiracy theorists, like, oh my God, they killed him,
Right.
So like, that just, if you're a conspiracy theorist, that is strange.
Yeah, it is strange.
Especially when it comes to like Illuminati and stuff like that. Like he was trying to expose them, and then he dies 4 days later of a massive heart attack. And not only that, you're going to like this part. He died 666 days before the millennia.
Wow. Weird.
So it's just freaking insane. I was like, if that's not,
Right. It's
just weird. It is. It's like crazy coincidences.
There's too many coincidences.
If it's a coincidence.
Yeah, there's too many
just
coincidences.
Like The Shining, that all can't be a coincidence.
I don't think so.
Like there is too much in that movie for it to be a coincidence.
I know that our audience has become accustomed to me being a big old alien nut and into conspiracy theories, but I like the ones that have. I'm not when I look into conspiracies, I like the ones that are like crazy, like flat Earth, and which will probably piss a lot of people off listening. But I don't like things that are too out there. You know what I mean? I think we can. This
is out there,
right?
It's like you watch the movie, and now that you like know all this stuff, when you watch the movie, you start seeing every little thing. And
this is the way the podcast, I think, is going to go in from here on in, is bringing things to the table that have facts to it. Because I think that's what we've always done. But unless we were talking, right? Unless we were talking about like some
cryptid,
or some cryptid. But I like the things of nature. But we mentioned. Do you have any more on this?
Let me see. No, I don't think so. Just the fact that he. That was the one thing that you got into that I was going to get into was the whole 237 and why he changed it.
Right.
And it was actually the exterior hotel that they use for the Overlook Hotel asked him to change it to a number that didn't exist because they didn't want people to be afraid to stay there and stuff like that, or stay in that room.
Right.
In room 217. So they asked him if he could change it, but it was his choice to change it to 237.
Oh, funny. Okay.
So like, why out of all the numbers was 237?
Right.
Yeah.
So we mentioned the dark side of the moon, and this is, I think we're, as the podcast progresses with this new season, we're going to getting into more of, I think, space and things of nature. We're going to get into more. We'll just see where it takes us. So, what dark side of the moon? There is tons of theories about what's on the dark side of the moon, because there was made mention by astronauts, I think, or people who seen a glimpse of the dark side of the moon, because the moon does when it turns, or when actually doesn't turn, but there's certain times of the year where you can see more of that side of the moon. And there was people talking about how there's. I can't remember now if it was a people or if it was an astronaut or something, but people talking about how
astronauts are people too,
right? That there's an 11 mile high tower, things of that nature.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not very significant,
right? And there's
11 miles,
right? 11. There's the different theories about what's on the dark side of the moon.
Yeah.
And I think for this question, we can shoot to our correspondent Jamie Lissow. And Jamie, what do you think's on the dark side of the moon?
Love this question. What is on the dark side of the moon? I think this is pretty obvious. It's I just forgot what I was going to say. So the question is, what is on the dark side of the moon? A lot of people don't know the answer to this. I think we can look at what we know for sure. What is not on the dark side of the moon? Flashlights, things that illuminate things. It's very, very dark. I would say it's safe to say, if we're going to assume there are in fact aliens, that the dark side of the moon is sort of like the wrong side of the tracks. You know, like you're an alien, you bring home a hot alien chick, and you go, Mom, I'd like you to meet that slurps up. And your mom's like, we talked about this. We don't want someone from the dark side of the moon. We want someone from our half. Okay? On the dark side of the moon, they're just misunderstood. I would not be surprised, however, if we went over on the dark side of the moon, they turned some lights on, and it was just Fairbanks, Alaska, the city I live in, because it's basically where I live. It's basically the dark side of the moon, essentially. But in all actuality, what do I think is on the dark side of the moon? Alien life forms. I would say primarily grays, because they'd be camouflaged on the dark side of the moon. Hope for an hour a day, if you live on the dark side, you get at least some rec time on the bright side of the moon. Like when you're in jail, you get to remind you, hey, that's what the sun looks like. You think if these aliens are so smart, they'd be able to hang up some sort of light fixtures and the whole moon would be lit up, but maybe they don't have Home Depot.
The picture of it's possible that it's just like the wrong side of the tracks, wrong side of town.
All right, so we're gonna go to one more caller, and then we should wrap it up after that.
Right. So one more caller. You are on the line with Fallen Hour Radio. What is your question?
Hey, what's up, guys? Can I get a number 4 and also a number 7?
You're on a podcast right now.
Is it cheaper to just get a number 11?
We're on a Fallen Hour Radio.
Forget it. Give me a 4 and a 7. And
I don't think.
What do you guys want? What do you? I just realized I'm alone.
He doesn't realize you don't realize you're on the podcast.
Just give me a.
I don't think he's listening.
Let me just get a burger and a large order of fries.
We don't have fries.
Large Diet Coke.
We don't have Coke either.
And if you don't have Diet Coke, just extra fries is good. Yeah. And could you deliver that?
You're literally on a podcast.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
You're on Fallen Hour Radio. There's a podcast.
Yeah. Could you deliver that?
We don't do delivery.
You know what? I'll just pick it up. Where are you guys located?
Spotify.
You know, it doesn't matter. I'll find you. Okay. See you in a minute.
Well, thank you very much to our callers this evening. And
it's the same guy. It has to be the same guy.
We usually have we're gonna set up a screener. So next time we'll have a screener on.
We can weed out the crazies and the high ones. Actually, we could take the high ones, but
there was another theory about the moon being hollow, and this is the one I wanted to cover very quickly. Scientists decided to put a seismometer. It's a really hard seismometer, whatever, on the seismometer on the moon while the astronauts were leaving the moon to come back to Earth. They decided to separate the lower. What is between this thing?
Stop reading.
So they decided to separate the second half of their shuttle, which is the one that takes them to landing to land, right?
Yeah.
So they decided. So they had the seismometer on the moon, and they're able to. It's like how they measure earthquakes on Earth.
Yeah,
they're able to.
They're trying to measure moonquakes.
Right, moonquakes, and it's a funny word to say, moonquake. Anyways. They have this technology on the moon. They decide on takeoff. So while this is happening, there is an astronaut who's circling the moon, right?
Orbiting.
And this is one of the things. I'll get into this really quickly. Is why people say that they don't believe that these astronauts went to the moon. Is this astronaut that's in orbit, circling the moon, and they asked him when they come back to Earth, how are the stars? Did you see any stars up there? How did they look to you? And he says, I didn't see any stars. And he's the one circling the moon, and he's in orbit. Yeah. He is, I guess, monitoring and making sure that in different scenarios he's able to pick the astronauts up. And he comes back to Earth saying, I didn't see any stars. Later,
doesn't recall seeing any stars.
And this is
maybe the first thing I'd look for.
Right. And this is immediately from coming from the moon onto Earth. They say they went into isolation, or what's the word I'm looking for? Quarantine.
Yeah.
Because
for
they
like 2 weeks.
Right. They didn't know what they would bring back, whatever. And after 2 weeks, they go to the press, and the press asks him, "Do you see any stars?" He says, "I didn't remember seeing any stars." And he's in space, right?
Yeah.
Years later, he writes a book and detailing his trips to the moon and the whole thing, moon landing, and all that stuff. And he explains how miraculous and how beautiful the stars were. Right? So people are like, "Okay, so we have this footage of you saying you didn't see any stars. Some years later, you put out a book and
talking about how amazing the stars were."
Right? Yeah.
He contradict himself.
Right. So back to this seismometer is when they detached this part of the space shuttle, it crashed into.
They literally did a controlled crash.
Right, a controlled crash, and this thing was going hundreds, if not a couple thousand miles an hour, something like that, some crazy number. Because I remember reading that number, I was like, "Geez, it was going fast." Right, it was going very fast, and they're taken off out of orbit from the moon, and this thing hits the moon so hard that it sends a ringing almost.
Yeah, the moon actually rang like they described it as ringing like a bell.
Right,
and not just a little while. It rang for like several hours.
Yeah, and
every time they did this, it rang for like at least 7 hours.
Yeah,
7-8 hours.
And because the way that they're able to calculate this or to figure out that the moon is ringing is that when they were getting the readings on their data coming in from the moon, is it was coming in pulses.
Yeah.
So there would be, let's say it would be like an earthquake. There would be a pulse, and then there'd be silence, and then another pulse, and that was happening after they hit the moon. And they then figured out that this kind of seems like it's ringing, like if you drop a droplet of water into a cup full of water, you see these like ripples. And that's kind of the effect that was happening with the moon being hit with that piece of aircraft. It was almost like it was setting out ripples of noise throughout the moon. And people are speculating now, is the moon hollow? Is it full of water? And things of that nature.
Or even like almost like a Death Star scenario.
Right.
They're saying like, is it a craft? Or there was theories that it was dragged here and placed here to monitor Earth. That's one of the theories. I don't like that one. But like I was like, no way, because it was towed on a comet, they said. So no way.
Also another one I want to cover.
That's insane. That is a crazy theory.
Is Oumuamua. I want to get into that.
Okay.
You know what that is?
No.
This is the massive rock that came through Earth like a couple years ago.
Okay.
It came through Earth. It came through our solar system.
Yeah.
And they're tracking it, and they said it looks like some sort of ship. Mm-hmm. Because of how they call it a cigar.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. Okay. No.
So that's a Oumuamua. Anyways, I want to cover that one and get into that.
Okay.
So if you guys are satisfied with today's podcast, make sure you go to facebook.com/fallen hour. Leave us a review.
Do you have another?
That's a new one.
Do you have another question for Jamie?
Oh yeah, we got another question. So this question is, what is the moon made of? And this is a question I'm sure you guys asked your kids. This is a big question with kids in school. And what's the moon made of? So Jamie, take it away.
Okay, we got another question coming in. What is the moon made of? Okay, this one's a little bit tougher. I don't want to get too into the woods or too technical, but it's made of like moon rubble rocks. Moon rocks. I'm sure you've heard of moon rocks. A lot of moon rocks there. The reason they got their name moon rock is because they started off as a moon, and then things fell off of it, creating moon rocks. So obviously, the moon is in fact made of moon rocks, depending on what type of moon you're looking for. And depending on what we mean by the term moon. So like I said, a moon can either be made of moon rocks or two butt cheeks. It's a different.
So we got to thank Markus also for the lighting tonight. And if you guys are watching on Facebook wondering what's happening, it's just lit up by the candle. Just kidding. But if you guys are watching out there on Facebook, make sure you go to go to fallenhour.com. If you guys are listening, make sure you visit fallenhour.com. This has everything Fallen Hour, everything coming up. We're going to be back on with Miranda Young, Ghost Biker in July.
I believe it's July.
We are going to start pulling other people from other podcasts, other hosts, and have them on our podcast. And because we got to utilize StreamYard, Marcus, I'm paying $50 a month and we're not even using it.
July 14th.
Okay. So we have, we're going to be lining up those things. We also have some archived podcasts we're going to be putting out, and those will be out soon. So if you guys are out there listening, make sure you go to facebook.com/FallenHour, Instagram @FallenHour, YouTube @FallenHour. If you guys are watching on Facebook, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Radio Public, anywhere basically where you can get your podcast @FallenHour Radio, and you guys can find us there. That is fallenhour.com. Does that do it for you?
That does it. We staggered through this in the beginning.
I know, it's so...
kind of did okay, I guess.
Right.
So sorry for this Frankenstein of episode.
Not our best podcast, but next podcast we'll do better. My name is Cdale. This is Marcus, and you're listening to Fallen Hour Radio.
That's why I hate notes, man.
I don't like notes either.
I like doing it off the top of the dome.
Yeah, but next podcast maybe we'll do that.
Yeah.
What's we got to think about the next podcast episode.